Sunday night, 9 o'clock. Welcome to All Lacrosse Live on our new network, Streampunk Entertainment. With me tonight, I have Muffler Mike Kostiuk over in Connecticut. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good, Gary.
Excellent. Shawn is out sick this week, and we wish him the best and a speedy recovery, and hopefully he'll be back with us next week. Just a reminder on our new network that all the episodes are streamed live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also Twitch. And remember to hit the subscribe, follow, and like buttons, and always share. Please enjoy our affiliates, which include the Pat Bernard Show, the Attacking Third, and Steel Steps. If you missed a show, no worries. You can grab all the podcasts on YouTube, in which you will catch on All Across All the Time our library of shows, interviews, retro games, and a whole lot more. So give it a look there. Remember, you can stay up to date with all sports by visiting streampunkentertainment.com, and you can get all the articles from our huge staff of contributors. We got a great show for you tonight, guys. We got a special guest. We have Darris Kilgour with us. Darris has won on every level. He won a couple of Man Cups with St. Catharines. He won 5 Man Cups with Six Nations and with the Brampton Excelsiors. I believe 4 championships with the Buffalo Bandits, both as a player and coach/GM. His accolades include being inducted to the Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame, Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, NLL Hall of Fame, also inducted with the Six Nations Chiefs in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, and also the first number to be retired by the Buffalo Bandits. Without further ado, why don't we bring Darris on with us? Darris, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man. It's always great to have you on here. Love talking lacrosse stories with you. Let's start way back in the beginning. And first question we normally ask is, how did you get involved in lacrosse? What made you pick up a stick?
I lived on the Tuscarora Reservation, and obviously, a lot of guys played there, and something my dad wanted us to get into. So he signed us up in Niagara-on-the-Lake because, unfortunately, we didn't have lacrosse on our reservation at the time. So we had to go through Canada, which was really a blessing in disguise. Obviously, they produce the best lacrosse players in the world, and the competition over in Canada is probably the highest you're going to find. So it was really a blessing to be able to go over there and play and learn the game at that level.
Right. And your parents, they were part of the game in a sense while not playing it. They helped manufacture things because just around the corner from yours, it was the Tuscany Crafts place, Wes Patterson's place, and Mom and Dad both worked there, right? Dad was bending sticks and Mom stringing sticks, so really got a good, right from the word go, got a good grasp of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Wesley's such an old timer that people don't really realize who he is or who he was, but he was about a 6'7", 6'8" man, and he played at UMass. And I know he held the record for a long time for most goals scored in a consecutive game at D1 level. I know he scored 12 and 13 in consecutive games.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's still a record or not, but he was a tremendous man to learn from. He was very, very wise in terms of the game and in growing the game. He was like the one of the biggest producers for women's stick all throughout the 70s and 80s. And then unfortunately, the plastic stick came out and the wood stick sort of went to the side. But yeah, he was a big pioneer of the game. He also was one of the first ones, the founders with the Orange Lions and them, to start the Iroquois Nationals in '84 and got them out to Los Angeles and stuff. So yeah, I've been around the game and I've been around some great people from the beginning.
Right. Wasn't your brother's first job? He was there as well, eh? He was in there bending sticks as well.
We started bending sticks when we were about 12 years old, and then, just progressed on along from there.
Right on. What a great job.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Really getting dulled in the game, yeah?
Yeah. And unfortunately, we broke every window in his shop, and he loved to remind us of that. But the worst thing he ever did was try to show us a backhand because then we broke every window around his shop.
So nowadays, more and more opportunities for guys from the res to get a chance to see outside of the res. You were lucky back then because you had to come out to Niagara-on-the-Lake and start playing lacrosse out here. It gave you a little bit more, I guess, as you would put it, perspective outside of just the views on the res.
I think, the reservation, obviously, Cattaraugus, Six Nations, Onondaga, they have been producing players for a very long time. But I think the biggest thing that it allowed us, and now that we sort of blazed that trail, not just us, there's guys before us, Mouse Henry and guys like that. But I think people see that it's very feasible now to go to a D1 college, to have opportunities off the reservation. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that you're leaving the reservation. It just means you're expanding your world. You can always come back to the reservation. The reservation's not going anywhere. So I try and tell all my young guys, like, aim high, man. You don't have to aim for Can-Am. You can aim for the pros. You can aim for D1 or D3 or junior college. Whatever you want to do, it is possible to do that nowadays.
Definitely. And what's worse, you can always get an education while you're there, shoot for a scholarship. And, what's the worst thing? You're going to wind up with an Ivy League school like Harvard or Yale or Cornell in your back pocket. Gee, that's it's a
Yeah,
horrible thing.
that's pretty good back pocket.
I would say so. Yeah. And, with of course, the silver thing in there, of course, getting a professional career out of it because it's growing at exponential rates compared to when you started out as well.
Well, social media, the game has grown so much over the last 20 years. It's unbelievable. But, for me, it's a double-edged sword. I think there are a lot of people out there right now that are sort of taking advantage of it. Like, my he's a junior in high school right now. He's playing for like 3 different field teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it really costs a lot nowadays to sign up. But then now everybody's traveling too. So it doesn't just cost you $2,000 to sign up. You also have to go to 3 different tournaments throughout the year, and that's going to cost you $1,500 a weekend. So it's getting pretty expensive, and that's one of the things I don't like the trend of it's going. Like I do work out for kids on my reservation, all free. The kids come. I got Zach Belter helping me out. I had John Tavares come last year, Ron John. I try and bring these guys in, and it's all free for the kids. And like we really want to focus on the correct way to play the game, the correct way to prepare for the game. And I think that's what's missing a lot now with the travel teams is you get recruited and you show up and you play. It's not that earn aspect that it used to be where you had to practice with this team and know their systems and stuff. Now, like everybody knows the basics of a 3-3 or a pick and roll and all that. So you just sort of plug and play, where I am traditionalist in terms of I want a team that practices together, plays together. And I think, they'll put it this way. There's 3 types of teams that win. The most talented, the hardest working, or the best coached. If you have 2 of those 3, you got a chance at a championship. If you got 3 of those 3, you got a chance at a dynasty.
Right.
So, but what we're taking away from the game is the coaching aspect of it. And I know they say everything's overcoached now, but I don't believe that. I mean, you look at Senior A. Having a season, not many, and that's sort of why I sort of gravitated away from the men's game and got back into the minors. And I love coaching field lacrosse also because I think coaching field lacrosse is like chess, coaching box lacrosse is like checkers because you don't have a lot of time to really get across any kind of schemes or anything like that.
Right. It's been brought up a number of times from a number of the field coaches as well. Field is a lot more blueprinted, whereas box is by feel. So you're going by player instinct in box.
Well, yeah, and obviously you got to get a shot off in 30 seconds, so the advantage goes to the defense because they just disrupt your timing. That's usually good enough to make you take a bad shot or an unwanted shot late in a 30-second shot clock. Where field lacrosse, I like that they're got their shot clock going, and I like that they give them enough time to be able to run this system. To get into a look and it didn't work, so we're going to rotate it and we're going to look at this look. You can see the coaching happening a lot more at like D1. I think D1 is the height of coaching for any coaching lacrosse because you have the most time with the kids and you can really implement what you want your team to be.
Sure. Now, another thing that you had in your travels was because you had to travel outside the res, you were the outside guy to a lot of the teams that you went to. So you had to learn quickly how to fit in, how to be a good teammate. Don't be the team, don't be the game. You have to be one that works with everybody. So you learned that aspect of it a lot quicker than most.
For sure. You have to go in there and you have to let the team know right away, like what are you going to do for them, not what can they do for you. And I think that's another thing that's changing is with these young guys that get accolades so fast that they just expect it to be that way. When, back in the day, man, I never won nothing until 1990. So for 18 years, I lost everything. never won a provincial. Maybe a zone, but who cares about a zone?
Right.
You want provincials, you want nationals, stuff like that. So through losing and through having to find my way on other teams, it really prepared me to be a good teammate. And I always say it with the Buffalo Bandits when I was coaching them: if we have a bunch of good teammates, we'll have a good team.
Right.
A lot of it is just the camaraderie you have. There's that team that can't wait to get together, and then you see the teams that can't stand each other and can't wait to get away from each other.
Yeah.
And you just go by the top of the standings to the bottom of the standings, and you'll see what kind of teammates you have. And it doesn't mean to say that, hey, man, there is sometimes where you're in a bad situation and you're a good teammate, but you don't have enough good teammates. And those are frustrating situations to be in. But at the same time, you can only control what you do. So number one thing, do what you can do. Be a good teammate. Make it, energy is passed on, good or bad. You affect the guy next to you whether you want to or not.
Right.
It's just the way it is. So if you get down by 3 and everyone starts looking at each other, that's not a great situation. You get down by 3 and you get a bunch of guys that say, okay, boys, dig in. Now it's time. Now you got a shot at it to come back, So I always look for the energy of the players and the body language of the players. It's a big deal to me.
Right. Yeah. Character, not characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's go back to junior. You alluded to 1990. I'm going to go back a little bit further than that to your Niagara on the Lake and Junior B, just before you get to the magical St. Catharines run there. Let's talk about jumping up into Junior B and getting your first taste of really on your way up the ladder of getting towards pro.
Well, for me, I'm a very loyal person. So when I played Niagara on the Lake all the way through, I had the choice of going to Junior B or trying out for the Junior A St. Catharines team. Now, growing up, I didn't like anyone from St. Catharines. Randy Mearns, Trevor Vidal, Darren Much. Some of my best friends today, I couldn't stand because I didn't know them, and I played against them my whole career. So I started out in the Junior Bs, and I wanted to be a Niagara on the Lake. And, as I said, sometimes you get on a team where they don't have the same goals as you do. My goal was to be the best team, to be the best player, to be those type of things. Where I thought this team was sort of like, we're getting together and we're going to say we want to win, but we're not going to have everybody at practice. We're not going to do the things it takes to win. So after 1 year, it was pretty clear to me that, okay, I don't really want to be in this situation. So I'm going to, Rich had been there for a year and he said, no, it's good. So I followed Rich to the Junior A's, and that's how I ended up in St. Catharines.
Which leads us into, of course, the magical 1990 team. When Rich was on a couple of weeks ago, he was describing it as well. And this was just an absolute score fest. The lines were just unbelievable. The talent level that was on this 1990 team was just uncanny, probably second to none.
It's funny because Mearnsy, he just sent me a text today. He said, man, we were pretty good in 90. And it was a score sheet it was a list of the all-star teams, East, West. And it had the players from each team listed. And like we had four, I think I was at like 98 points halfway through the season. Mearnsy was at like 60 points. Rich was at 60 points. And there was only like 2 other teams that had a 60-point getter. One was Greg Van Sickle, and I think the other one was Neil Doddridge. Other than that, we were 20 points clear of everybody with 4 different guys on our team. I think we had 4 of the top 5 scorers that year. Greg Van Sickle slept in there. Rich was number 2, Mearnsy was number 4, and Tyson Leeds was number 5. I think our average score that year was something like 20-something to 6 or 7. I know we had a 23-0 shutout in the playoffs, which is, unheard of.
That's insane.
So, yeah, we were pretty powerful then. And, we ran into a really tough team out west that year in Richmond with all the scores they had there, Jason Mulder and Pacquiao and guys like that. They were a very good team, and that was a very, very tough Minto to win.
Right. No, we moved forward a year, and a lot of the guys left. And I think you had something like 11 rookies the next year. So this is where actually the learning comes. It's one thing with all the talent around you, but now you had to become a leader, a mentor, a teammate, and all the other things that you were preaching, and really put it together to win that second Minto.
And what's really funny is I was none of those things at that time. I was an individual. I was a one-on-one player. I was great outside shooter and a one-on-one guy. I wasn't a great pick and roll guy. I wanted my points. I wanted everything I wanted, right? Because I was tired. That's what I learned through all the losing. And then I get there, and it was just, like Randy Mearns, I call him Captain, my captain. He is such a great person, a great teammate, a great leader, and I learned a lot from him. And like that year, the second year was crazy because Jim Brady came to me and said, I want you to be captain. And I said, no, man, I'm not captain material. Like let Muchie or Stevie Fennell, someone St. Catherine's got to be captain. He said, no, they follow you. So he made me captain. And I was also really good friends with Miles General and Cam Barnbury, and they had just gone back to Six Nations because they got a junior A team in. Well, me never having a chance to play with a bunch of natives, they were in my ear like, hey, man, come to Six Nations. And they were a very good team at the time. They were our top, opponent. And we started out 0-4, and I told Jim, I said, listen, man, my heart's really not into it. I want to play with the natives, man. I just want to do that. And he said, give me another 4 games, and if we lose anything before the transfer deadline, I'll trade you. And I said, okay. So we started out 0-4, and then we won 16 in a row. So that sort of changed everything. And then we swept Brampton in the first round of playoffs, and then it was like, okay, I think we really have something here. So I'm glad I stuck around. And I did eventually get to play with them guys in Six Nations anyway, so it all worked out.
350 points in 60 games and 2 Minto Cups, I'd say, is a pretty good junior career. But through only a couple of years, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was at that point in time, I was very lucky to go to Nazareth and play for a coach named Scott Nelson. We didn't see eye to eye in terms of personalities, but he taught me a tremendous amount of how to prepare a team. He was the first one that I ever played for that came out with a practice plan. Like every day there was a practice plan, and there was a goal to get better this day. This is what we're doing. And he was also huge in being in shape. So when I would come back from Nazareth, I was dead in shape. And I can't explain to young kids how much that helps you just being in shape. Because when you're out of shape, you look for excuses.
Right.
When you're in shape, there are no excuses. You want to run. Let's go. But when you're out of shape, it gets real hard to play lacrosse against someone that is in shape. So I was very blessed to be around some very talented people at that time that knew the game, and I was smart enough to listen and watch and learn.
Right. Now, 1992, Buffalo gets a team in the MILL, and they come calling. You get picked first overall, and I happen to have a card from STX. There's Darris from 1992. Walk down memory lane. I got all kinds of stuff.
That right there was, I thought, wow, we had a really great team in St. Catharines, then a pretty good team. And then all of a sudden I'm playing with John Tavares, Jim Veltman, Troy Cordingley, Derek Keenan, Stewie Aird. The guys that I looked up to and guys that, were contemporaries that were the best in what they did. Like, it was just such a moment in time to be able to bring that kind of talent together, and not just with the Buffalo Bandits, but with the Brampton team and then with the Six Nations team. So, I mean, in that 7-year run, I retired by the time I was 28. I was done playing at 28. But from like 20 to 28, I think if you went over my record, we won 2 Mintos, 7 Mans, 3 NLLs, lost 2 NLLs. So, let's say a total of 13 seasons, we were in the finals like 12 of them,
Right.
which is an amazing run, no matter where or when. So very proud to say I played with those guys, and very proud to say that we were very successful as a team and a unit.
Right. Now, from top to bottom, this Bandits team was total class and total talent. Like, even from the top, you had Buck McCready as your original coach. A couple of games in, he was replaced, and Johnny Meridian put in Les Bartley as the coach. He actually, when we had him on the show, he was debating whether it was going to be himself or Les, and then Les took the reins on that, and the rest is history. Talk about Les, because we've had a lot of guys who played for him over the years talk about it. I'd like to get your perspective on Les Bartley.
My perspective is a little bit different. He was starting out then, and I don't think it was his plan to be a coach, and this was just an opportunity that came about. And he was nowhere near what he was when he went to Hamilton and Toronto. Like he
Right.
evolved. And I think with us, we had guys that were actually as old as or older than Les and sort of knew him as a player and knew him as a person. And they were sort of like, Les, listen to what we're saying. Don't try and talk too much. Listen to what we're saying. Like guys like Derek Keenan, Bobby Hamley, Brian Hall, Stu Yard. They were the real leaders of that team. But Les could give a great pregame speech. Like he felt it and he gave it. But he did defer to the older guys on our team in terms of like, hey, what do you think we should be running? Like, are we a transition team? Are we a 5-on-5 team? How do you want this power play to work? Like he was very open to suggestions and stuff. And I don't know how he was towards the end of his career, but obviously he was tremendous because I mean, look at his record as a coach. I mean, it's just unprecedented.
Right. Now, your big. What was the biggest adjustment coming from junior and coming on to the pros, especially a team like this, where it has so much talent? You didn't have to be the guy.
It was refreshing. It really was refreshing. Like I know when I went to Brampton, I was still a bit of a one-on-one player, and Troy Quarterly was a blessing to play with. He really taught me the pick and roll game, and mostly because he was a pick setter and I was a ball carrier, and he would just say, like, look, I'm going to do this, and you just do this, and it will work every time. And it just sort of progressed from there. But Troy was the first player I played with that was like, okay, we're going to pick and roll, not, hey, get out of my way. I'm going to do a one-on-one all the time. And it really opened my eyes to, with John Tavares on the other side and guys like that. Like, hey, man, you don't have to score every goal. You don't have to carry the ball all the time. Give it up and get it back and catch, score the easy goals once in a while. So it was a big adjustment, but it was a really a weight off my shoulders, and I loved every minute of it.
Right. Now talk about playing in Banditland, because that place was always a zoo. It's a zoo now. It was a zoo then. Back then with the Memorial Odd, I used to love traveling over to Buffalo just to catch Bandits games because of, sitting up in the Orange and the zoo that was there. Philadelphia, Boston, and Buffalo was just nuts.
It was a special time, man. I remember the first time there, they delayed the game, I think, for 20, 25 minutes because there's such a line out the door. They wanted the fans to get in the door before we started the game. So, we didn't expect any of that. And then, I think about our by our third game at home, we were selling the place out, and it just went bonkers there for I don't know 7-8 years, where it was absolutely the place to be on a Saturday night, and the fans are the ones that make it that. You know what I mean? They came there, and you go to a hockey game nowadays, and it's a lot of corporate season ticket holders and stuff like that, and they sort of sit on their hands where. We brought in guys that were working class, couldn't afford the Sabres tickets. So they bought cheap tickets with us, and, we wanted to put on a show for them because, man, honestly, at that time, I don't think any of us had played more than, a 2,000-seat arena or anything like that, and barely sold that out, So to have 16,000 people there going absolutely nuts where you could feel it vibrating on the bench, and you could see the cameras vibrating when you watch the game back. It was an amazing thing, and I don't know if it'll ever be replicated because not only was it packed, but that arena, and like you were saying, still up in the Oranges, that used to be scary. Those stairs without the railing, it was almost straight up and down. It felt like the crowd was on top of you, and it was just such a special thing. Like I said, the way they build the arenas, I don't think you'll ever have that type again. And
they're all better now. Every one of them back then was their own little mantra. They had their own style and character to it. You go into Boston or Philadelphia, and they were right on top of you with a low glass. Buffalo with a glass that swayed for 3 or 4 feet when you hit it.
Yep. And I was very lucky because when I came in, I got to play in the Spectrum. I was a Philadelphia 76ers fan, but I got to play in the Spectrum. I got to play in Boston Gardens. I got to play in Maple Leaf Gardens. I got to play in the Odd. I got to play in Joe Louis. And a lot of these arenas they're all gone now. Yeah. But those were the ones I grew up watching, professional teams playing, the Sabres going here and there, and it was a dream come true to play there, and for me to get booed in those other arenas. If you're not getting booed by the other team, what are you really doing, right? Like, I want it to be hated.
Right. It's almost like wrestling in that respect. Yeah. Booze or
It
cheers.
really is, man. You're there to entertain, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go there and score the between my leg shot. I want to show them how much it means to me. Wear the heart on the sleeve. Let them know it hurts when I lose, and let them know that I'm happy when I win. And
Right.
then they can join in. They feel the same thing. And Buffalo's a blue collar town, man. If you go there and you give it for them, they will give it for you.
Right.
So it's you look at the Bills Mafia, same thing throughout. Any team in Buffalo that has success, they will support it. But you have to show them that you're a hardworking blue collar team.
Right. The league was smart at that time too, because they marketed to that. They marketed to the hardworking guy. They marketed to the party. Come see it. I found one of the old posters from '93 in the Bandits, and a very young JT, a very young Randy Mearns in there, and
Yep.
literally sponsored by Coors Light. I believe
Yep.
it was you that said if you can sell $2 tickets, $2, and have a couple of fights and sell anything out. And this was the proof in the pudding, really.
Well, not the planned fights, but like back then we fought because, man, F you. I don't like you. I don't like
Yeah.
your team. I don't like your city. F you. And that's how everybody played. But nowadays, everybody knows each other through social media, and one of the hardest things I ever had to do was play against the teammates I really like Dwayne Jacobs, Randy Mearns. I remember one time I was going in for a loose ball against Randy Mearns, and it was anybody else, I probably would have tried to run him. But it was Randy, and I'm like, well, I'm going to try. And he beat me for a loose ball, and I was just like, oh, man, that was stupid. I should have ran him through the board, but I couldn't do it because he's my captain. So it was strange for me playing against friends, but nowadays they're all friends. They all know each other through social media and travel teams and Team USA, Team Ontario, Team Haudenosaunee. We all know each other now. So it's a bit of a different dynamic than when it was Brampton against St. Catharines. And there were no St. Catharines players in Brampton. And we didn't like each other. When I went to Brampton for seniors, we had 3 bench clears, 10 line fights against Brampton before I ever went to Brampton. So I remember my first practice at Brampton. I was waiting to see who I was going to fight in practice.
Right.
That's what I felt, right? But it never materialized, and I had a great time in Brampton. They're a great bunch of guys. But you build those rivalries up in your mind when you don't know them personally,
Right. One of the things that came to mind was we talked to Rich about it. Also, was the Marty O'Neill incident.
Which one?
Well, the one that got ESPN all bent out of shape because they're trying to go to commercial while a bench clearing brawl is going on, which takes its way up into the stands and everything else. But the initial thing was, of course, Marty taking a punch to Tavares in the back of his head in the crease. You come through the crease and let Marty know that that's unacceptable. Somehow he winds up on the other side of the net, and here's Rich coming off the bench and leveled him. He just flew across the floor, and then it got interesting from there.
Well, that was the first game we lost after the 23-game win streak.
Yeah.
And JT, he did very well after he got up from when Marty. I think he got in a fight with a guy named Francis, and JT had that taken care of. Glenn Lay was fighting Paul Tomlin at center. Rich absolutely destroyed Marty. I felt bad for Marty that time. Oh man, Rich, you could have killed that guy. And what's funny is Marty come to play for us in Six Nations. And he was the same way I was just talking about. He's like, man, when I showed up, I was thinking, I'm going to get a headshot on practice. I'm going to have to scrap somebody at practice. Well, it was fine. But he, when we got to know him, it was like, yeah, every time it rains, I think of you, Rich, as so, and it is. You watch those Man Cup games, he's swinging a stick at JT's head, dodges his head. Marty was a competitor, and I loved playing against him, and I loved when he was on our team.
Right. Well, I think I mentioned this to you a couple of years ago. Is I inherited Bill Fox's collection of old VHS tapes, about 80 or 90 VHS tapes that I have been over the last couple of years making it my mission to convert. And I've got about 30 or 40 up on our All Across All the Time YouTube page. You're there a lot because there's a lot of Mill games, a lot of Bandits games. There is Washington power games where you're coaching, and we even have the Steenhouse 17-point night where Rich is
Oh,
still the captain and you're the coach. And I have, believe me, I have a lot, and I still have a lot to go through, and a couple more coming up again next week. And so yeah, slowly but surely I'll get those things all up. Some of them are Man Cup things, and some of them are NLL, MILL. I think they go all the way back to 1987 as the earliest one. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to watch the progression of the league.
right.
Because one of my questions to you is comparing back then to now, has the game got soft? Because something that was probably a 5-game suspension now, if we're lucky, would have been a change of possession back then.
Yeah, I watched some of those tapes, and we were pretty liberal with our. They let the slash go a lot more back then. And but the big thing is, like I said, man, we never played in front of crowds like that. So the energy that was running through the bench and the guys was just insane at that time. Like the testosterone level goes through the roof. And like now, nowadays the energy's still there. I still think that it's still a good product on the floor, and I think they are getting back to hey man, let them have a scrap here or there. It is a physical game, and guys do get mad, and they should be able to, if it's they're consensual, I got no problem with it. The
Right.
contrived fights and stuff like that, like once in a while you got two tough guys and everybody's waiting to see it, and yeah, okay, through the course of the game, but I do think that they are trying to make it easier for guys to score and stuff. Sort of like the NFL, change from hey, let the D backs hit, let them do all this to where hey, we want points now. We want points are going to sell the game. I just think you have to be careful of who you're selling the game to.
Right.
One of the biggest things I used to say, I know they had a meeting where they wanted to go GM meeting where they wanted to go 4-on-4, and the thinking was that we're going to give all these Americans extra room and they can use their athleticism and stuff like that. And I said, listen, if we create opportunities for guys who can't score, then what are we really doing?
Right.
Like if you gave the average American 15 years ago a breakaway, they're 20-30%. So why don't we find a way to get Colin Doyle more shots? Gary Gate more shots. If we find a way to get them more shots, and that comes from take the holding out of the game, take the outball slash out of the game, and now these guys that can score and know what they're doing create opportunities for them, and you'll see the scoring go up. But I also think if you had more practices, you could scheme ways to turn the ball over. Like when we first started running that pressure defense back in 2000, teams weren't ready for it, man.
Right.
And if you weren't ready for it, I mean, we had games where we were winning 20-6, 26-7. Like we were blowing teams out that weren't ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, everyone's prepared for that pressure. But there's other ways to do it, right? Like the pressure defense isn't about taking the ball from you; it's about putting pressure on you so you make a mistake.
Right.
Right? People get that confused. You can't steal the ball from players anymore. Sticks are too good. They're too good at hanging on to the ball. You need to put pressure on the pass. And when they throw a bad pass, it turns into a turnover at the blue line. Blue line turns into a fast break. Fast breaks turn into goals. That's progression of it.
Right.
But with one practice a week, it's so hard. You got to go through power play, man, transition, offense, defense, face-offs, situational. You got to do all this in 2 hours. And it's very hard to scheme stuff up in 2 hours. And you see a lot of teams now reverting back to, hey, I'm just going to pack it up, block a lot of shots. And to me, that's just boring lacrosse. That's just lazy lacrosse.
Plus, with the fighting, too, you get a chance with the players to police themselves. You don't get a lot of really cheap things going on. It's when all that stuff gets taken out, guys feel like they can take liberties because it's the worst going to happen. They're going to get 2 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely got to have that threat in there. Like JT, right? Like that was a guy you're just not going to touch him. And if I'm the closest one, then I got to do it, right? And that's the way it has to be. Like when I first came back to Buffalo, we had a very, very tough team. We had Andy Ogilvie, we had Kerry Krzyzewski, we had Galsvik, we had Cooling, we had my brother Rich. And we had a very tough team. And the first thing I did, I said, there's 2 rules on this team. You don't have to fight for yourself, but you will fight for somebody else. Second rule, leash is off. I brought a dog leash off and I was swinging it. And I said, leash is off, boys. And I seen about 10 guys sitting there just nodding their head, already getting pumped up. And I'm like, I got the right group of guys for this.
Right.
You need to have the right group of guys to be able to coach that way and play that way.
Right. Because the unwritten rules really, especially when you were playing, were stand up for your teammates, stand up for yourself, and don't dare touch our goalie. Do you think that still applies now?
I think it still applies to certain teams. I know Buffalo still plays that way.
Oh, yeah.
We started this way back when. We're not the Buffalo Bandits. We're the Buffalo motherfucking Bandits. And we play that way and we act that way and we expect you to respect that. And if you don't, then we're going to have to show you why you do respect that. And if you have a team coming in already thinking, man, we got to go to Buffalo, man, we got to be ready, because if we're not, we're going to get smacked around. And if we get stupid, we're going to get smacked around. So you already have it in their heads that, it is going to be about lacrosse. And when you can do that and you're a better lacrosse team, game gets real easy.
Right. Now, a real testament to your character was when I was talking with Bill Fox a number of times at the Worlds, and we had him on a show a little while back as well. One of the things he said about you was that you demanded respect on the floor at all times and could back up anything you said or did, period. I think that's a real testament to your character coming from, a Hall of Fame referee like Bill.
Well, Bill was a great ref. Loved him. Loved playing when he was reffing. He was a guy who you could have a dialogue with throughout the game, a running dialogue. And, he also taught me how to respect referees. Like, we've had our talks where it's like, Darris, you go too far. You can't disrespect people because then, you're not giving respect. Why should I give you respect? So I love Bill Fox, and he, I'll tell you a quick story about Bill Fox. We were in Fergus one time, and we we're playing for Six Nations. And there's this girl up in the stands. And I had run into her a couple of times, and I wanted to meet her. So we're up like 17-8. The arena's like 100 degrees. I'm like, I'm sick of this, man. I say, Bill, man, like, dude, I want to go to the showers, man. I want to go buy that girl a beer. I want to say hi to her. And he looks at me and he says, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, Bill, I just toss me, man. And so he started acting like we're arguing, and then just boom, you're gone. I'm like, thanks, Bill. Thanks a lot. Sorry, when I bought the girl a beer, not never materialized from that, but he gave me a shot at it, and I appreciate him for it.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. All right, let's pivot to your coaching. We've alluded to it a little bit here. You start coaching with Washington, and that team is not really yours. You are the coach, but you got the Gates on there, and it's Paul and Gary's team, right?
You know what? What's funny is when I was playing with Pauline Six Nations, Les Wakeling used to have me go in and give a speech every once in a while, and I guess one of the speeches stuck with Paul in his head. So when he went down to Washington, they were looking for a coach, and him and his brother talked, and I said, "Hey, man, you should get Darris." And I like what he says and everything like that. So I went down there, and they were surprisingly very open to what I wanted to do and who I wanted to bring in. So they never stepped on my toes and said, "This is what we want to do." They always said, "What do you want to do?" And
right.
And I always appreciated them for that because, they are Paul and Gary Gate. They were the game of lacrosse, and they're the ones that really carried it to where it is today. And Steve Govett, got to thank him for giving me an opportunity. But, that was a really weird team because we had a lot of talent in terms of NCAA, Josh Sims, Jesse Hubbard, just the list goes on and on for all them. Kip Fultz, right?
Right.
We had a really good team, but we couldn't get over the Toronto hump. We lost to them the 2 years I was there. We lost to Toronto and with like 5 seconds left, and then we lost them in overtime the next year. And they go on to win it when they had their special run there with 4 out of 6 or something.
Right.
So we couldn't get over the Toronto hump, but we were a really good team. But that was a tough time to play because our home games were so bad. And the reason why we ended up in Toronto was we had no fans at home, so we weren't going to make any money.
Right.
So we
Right.
said, hey, we'll go on the road. We'll go play up in Toronto and split the gate because at least we're going to make money. I mean, it was so bad at that Washington Center. I'll never forget this. We're playing against Philadelphia, and there might have been 500 people in the stands. And this is a 19,000 seat arena, right? So it's
Right.
brutal. And there's a stoppage on a face-off, and Tom Marichuk was on the floor. And somebody in the stands is going, Tommy Marichuk. And Tom's not looking up at him, not looking on him. It goes on for like 30 seconds. This guy, Marichuk. Finally, Tom turns and he goes to wave, and the guy goes, you suck. But like both teams heard it. Everybody heard it. Heads were down on the just laughing. And it was so good. But it was hilarious that you could hear this guy heckle him for 30 seconds and you suck when he finally turned around. It was awesome.
That's great.
It's great.
Now you move back over to Buffalo, and this is your team. You get a chance to take the clay and mold it in your image, and mold it in your image. You did. It was tough. It was defensive. It had great offense in there as well. And along the way, you picked up guys like Brandon Francis, Steve Priola, character players to fill these roles along the way. One of the reasons probably was because you guys did so well that you never really had any top round first picks, that you had to be a little bit more creative in there.
I think if you go and look, like we drafted a lot out of junior B at the time, like Purvis, Rooney, Brandon Francis. Funny story with Brandon Francis, I never seen him play when I drafted him. It was getting late round. And I'm like, well, who should we get? And I look for a certain type of player, and I'm looking at his stats from junior B's Akwesasne. He had 120 points and 102 minutes in penalties. And I'm like, I got to see this guy. I gotta bring him. And the thing with Brandon is nobody knew that he had really good hands. He was a really good scorer. But once he adopted that, okay, I am the man, I am the heavyweight on the team, he sort of got away from the shooting aspect. But I always try to get him back into, like, dude, you'd be a terror going out the front door, man. Go set some picks and just look in the eye. And when you get an opportunity, bury your opportunity.
Right.
And I couldn't get him to make that step. But, yeah, at that point in time, we were drafting somewhere, either second to last or third to last or last every year. You can't get better on offense through the draft after number 5, really, right? There's about 5 really good offensive players coming out. After that, you're looking at transition, defense, whatever. But I remember when I traded Chris Corbeil. I loved that kid. I loved him. I drafted him. He did a great job for us. But he was still thinking he wanted to play NHL. So he was playing out west at the time. So, he's playing Western League hockey, couldn't fly in. And I said, well, this is a great time to trade him to get younger. And we traded, and we got the second overall pick, which turned out to be Dane, obviously. So when I traded Corbeil, everyone's like, what is he doing? What is he doing? And it took 2 years, but we finally got Dane out of it. And I think, everybody be happy with that trade now.
I think so too, yeah.
When it first happened, it's like, what the hell are you doing? But that's sort of how we had to do it, was we had to trade good guys to get up. Or we had to trade for older guys, Tracy Galuski, being one of the guys that we brought in later in his career. But I myself, I'd rather always draft, because it's, you're getting something that you can sort of mold to what you want. When you pick up an older player, you know what he is, and you're not going to improve upon what he is, right? You're just going to have to do what it is.
You took a lot of flack too, because you traded away draft picks for decent players too. But these draft picks, even though first rounders, would have been low in the draft anyways. So, I think you took a lot of abuse there for no reason, because I think it was smart business is what that was.
Well, at that point in time, I didn't get along with the guy that was my boss, Dave Zigai. We didn't see eye to eye on anything.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that made me get rid of Brandon Francis, Kyle Laverty, all our tough guys, all our backbone character guys.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he was a Division I goalie in hockey. And right after we won our championship, that's when we ended up trading for Cosmo. But it cost us 2 first-round picks. And I was like, no way, we got Mikey Thompson. And he's like, yeah, Mikey's not playing that great this year. And I said, no, we're not playing good defense in front of Mikey. And he's like, well, I want to do the trade. And I said, listen, if you do that trade, Mikey Thompson is not going to be happy. He might ask for a trade. blah, blah, blah. Well, he does the trade anyways. Within a week, Mike Thompson comes in and says, I'm probably going to retire at the end of the year. And this and that. And Dave's looking at me, he's going, why? What? I said, bro, you just brought in a guy that makes twice as much as Mike. You gave up 2 first-round picks, and now you got him sitting on the bench. Mike sees the writing on the wall. At some point, if we don't turn this around, you're going to look at me and say, play Cosmo. So, I mean, like, and then, you know, like another thing he did is he signed a player to a 5-year contract. And like a 5-year contract's pretty big, especially when it's like the biggest contract in the league.
Right.
So I was like, man, you sort of tied our hands, because if this don't work out, what are we going to do with him? We can't trade him. No one else is going to pay this. No one else is making the money we are. Now he thinks he's got a longer contract than me. He's doubling the money I make. So who has the real power?
Right.
Like you're undercutting me, you know, and that's sort of when things went sideways and I gave up the GM job. But it, you know, once it became not my team, then it was really hard to coach, because, you know, like you just said, got to have those players that want to play that style. And if you don't, then it's time to make a change.
Right. One of the character stories I want to bring up is the playoff game against Toronto. I think it was 2010. And the guys all, you know, went and shaved their heads, mohawks. And you're out there in pregame, you have your full head of hair. You go away for about 10 minutes. You come back out, you got a mohawk too. Got to be with the guys. That's the player's coach.
Yeah, you know, and I think maybe to a fault, I always chose the guys. And I think that was a big mistake of mine, was becoming a GM. Because when you become a GM and you get involved with the contracts, then you have to tell truths that are like, you know, this guy's coming back, and I got to say, like, hey, man, like, you aren't all you think you are, but now I want him to go play for me. And it just, like, it doesn't really work. It didn't work for me. I loved it when Kurt Sofat was there.
Right.
And once Kurt left, everything sort of started going sideways for me.
Right.
Because we didn't see eye to eye and how the team should be built and handled and the players and all that.
Right. You have some issues away from the game, and you get away from the game for a little bit. But most importantly, you find your way back. And for a lot of lacrosse guys like me, thank you. Thank you for finding your way back. Needs minds like you, needs guys like you, needs the character of guys like you. So really happy to have you back. Is there any more desire to be an NLL coach again?
I mean, yes, but no. I mean, I want to coach at the highest level, but at the same time, the politics of being a pro coach is not something I'm very interested in doing. Like, I've never been very good at playing the politic part of the game, you know? So, I mean, I'd love to work with some of the players, but I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I had a great time when I was with the War Chiefs. That might have been one of the best experiences I've ever had, just in terms of the players that came off that team that we got to the NLL, that we got to the junior A level. And that was one thing when I was there. Well, you know, like, coaches get confused with what their job really is. Everyone thinks their job is to win. The only job it is to win is maybe junior A, definitely senior A, definitely pro. If you're a junior B coach, your job is to prepare them for junior A.
Right.
Winning is a byproduct of practicing and playing the right way. You know, so I'm not worried about wins and losses. If we do the right thing in practice and we do the right stuff in the games, we'll win that game. It's just a byproduct. The biggest thing I say nowadays, to every team I coach, I ask the question, how do you win the game? And at first, everyone sort of looks, you know, I don't know what you're really asking. And I explain to them, it's step by step. You win the next shift in front of you, shift by shift. You win that shift, and we put enough shifts, we win that period. We win enough periods, we win that game. So don't think of the end result. Think of your job right here, right now, and win that. And that will be, the winning will be a byproduct of doing that over and over and over again.
Right. Does the Arena Lacrosse League seem enticing to you? Because I think that your style and your ideas would be perfect for that league, being a feeder league to the NLL and getting guys ready. So wins and losses aren't that imperative, but getting them ready to be a pro and to stay a pro. That's the big thing.
For me, one of the reasons why I love the War Chiefs is we practice 2 times a week, 2 hours, 2 hours of practice, and you can't get that at that level because the guys aren't being paid enough to move to that area, or they're not being paid enough to miss their regular jobs. That's a huge problem in the senior Bs is players have to have real jobs,
Right.
and if you can't pay them, then they have to say, hey, maybe I won't be here for a playoff game, or maybe I won't make the last game of the season, or whatever it is, especially practices. And that's where I want to be, is somewhere that we can practice and we can really help the guys in terms of, how to pick and roll, how we want to stop somebody, how, it just builds in the whole team aspect. So
Right.
any opportunity that I take, it would be with like the understanding of, man, we are going to have 25 to 30 dedicated players, and it always cracks me up because people don't think that's what it takes. But how come Orangeville is top from junior A down to peanut? They are in every freaking organization, A level, coaching hard, practicing hard. You will respect this jersey, and they do it. They do it as an organization.
Right.
I love the way they set things up, and I love that they're bringing guys in now. Before it was just strictly Orangeville. Now they're bringing in guys because everyone else is bringing guys. But when they come in, they become Orangeville Northmen. The Orangeville Northmen don't become what they were.
Right.
So that's the kind of organization I would be looking to get into.
Right. Now, it was great to see you at the Worlds. Congratulations on a great tournament with Haudenosaunee. We talked a couple of years ago about, when it was still called the Iroquois, and we got to get away from that because we've got to be more inclusive. Now with Haudenosaunee, and it's getting there. Are we at that point yet that we can draw from a bigger base? It's still the greatest teams around for such a small base of players to pick from.
Yeah, I mean, we are becoming more inclusive, and we're trying to grow that game, but and they see it coming. It's gonna be a very slippery slope that we're gonna have to walk to really get into the Olympics, because I mean, like now if you allow the Iroquois to put in a lacrosse team, are you allowing the Choctaw to put a soccer team in under their own country flag?
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Very slippery slope, and the USA can say whatever they want on publicly, but I know behind the scenes they're gonna have to get pulled kicking and screaming to allow this to happen.
Right.
But we are working towards that, and I think we got another 4 years to really get our ducks in a row, and hopefully we'll get the support from other countries.
Right. I think you have quite a few countries on your bucket already. Just take a look at before, when you couldn't get in, teams like Ireland were giving up their spots for you. I know Canada's behind you and all this stuff, and all the other ones along the way. So I think there's a lot more support than what you think. Yeah, the U.S. is going to go kicking and screaming, but eventually they're going to have to cave to the other pressure, I think.
Well, I hope so. And then again, behind closed doors, man, like there's a lot of, the U.S. has a lot of political clout, man. So,
Yeah.
hey, and if you don't support us in this, then we're not sending you $100 billion next year. Like,
Right.
it's very slippery slope, and it's very political. And I just hope that, we can continue working together and working forward, or, working towards a common goal.
Right. Because you take a look at the Worlds and you take a look at how successful they were, both men and women's. And it's incredible. And, that's just robbing the fans and the world if this doesn't happen like this. Because, coming down to the last few seconds of that semifinal, 99 times out of 100, Lyle Thompson gets a breakaway. That's it. We happen to see the one time out of 1,000 probably that he didn't get it. And that's the difference between Haudenosaunee in the finals, really. And
well, I beg to differ. I think at least one of the goals was a non-goal.
Right.
I think it was the second or third one. It went pipe out. I was standing right on the goal line. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Joe Terrence that scored that goal. I know that one didn't go in, and then the other one where Dougie fell back and had his hand over it on the line. That one could have went in. That could go either way, but I know the other one did not go in, so that puts us in overtime right there.
Right.
And I think that's a major flaw that they need to correct in moving forward with the World Games and all international play. That the semifinals, even quarterfinals, you have to have the technology to check goals.
Right.
Because
Sure.
to have those two goals, and they were very close. Like from my point of view, that first one did not go in. The second one might have. I don't know.
Hmm.
But we got to be able to throw a flag and at least take a look at that.
Right. My biggest enthuse about the whole Worlds thing was watching watching the women, and I think their final game was something that can be made into a TV movie. Really, you
Yeah.
know, and as much as being a Canadian, I would have loved to see Canada win, but I think for the game, I think that was the best thing possible to have the U.S. women win, come from behind at that in the fourth, and just the whole tournament though, because I got to talk with a lot of the teams and a lot of the women in there, and um, the ones that weren't upper echelon, the teams like Canada, the U.S., Haudenosaunee, were taking time after the game not just to talk and congratulate, but to show things. And it was a camaraderie, and that's what builds this game. That's what built it before. That's what's going to build it now.
Yes. Yeah. See, watching that final game, I was very, very impressed with the level of play on both sides. I thought the goaltending was great. You could see the offense they were trying to run. The pick and rolls, and they were running systems. And honestly, I think the women's game had bigger hits than the men's games.
Yeah.
Like
They were not afraid to use the
I
body.
watched I watched a couple of those hits, and I'm like, damn, man, I hope that girl's all right. Holy. But yeah, they really played hard, and I was impressed with every bit of the women's game, and obviously we didn't get the result we wanted, but we all knew USA had a very good team this year. I thought Goa played really well, and if you look at the roster, they were even missing Tom Schreiber, which is a huge loss.
Yeah.
And they played very, very well. They got us twice, so obviously we got some work to do and back to the grindstone and really develop some young players, which I think we have some really good young players coming up.
Oh, definitely. And the Man Cup showed that. The Man Cup showed just how many great players you have in that style of game too, and running lines, not going offense defense. I thought that was brilliant. You guys were running lines.
Well, I like them going out the back door, like Zeddy and that. But I thought there were situations where we could have handled better. Like I think the game against Canada, we obviously go down 9-0. Right? And it's like, oh my God, this game is just battle, just score a goal, right? Get it going.
Mm-hmm.
We get it all the way back, and I think it's 10-10.
In the fourth, yeah.
Yeah, and ended up there was a 4-on-4 for like 30 seconds. And I thought at that moment right then, Zed Williams has to be on the floor. Zed Williams needed to get the ball, and he needed to be the one to go one-on-one at that moment. And we didn't do that. And then we don't score on the 4-on-4. I think we get a power play. We don't score on that, and then they score a transition goal, and basically game's over.
Right.
So I thought we had our opportunities, but we obviously Lyle missed that shot, and I thought we had a couple of opportunities where we could have schemed it a little better. But other than that, I thought we put our best foot forward, and USA is a really good team, man. And in Canada, obviously, juggernauts.
Yeah.
They could put two teams in there and end up first and third or first and second if they're lucky.
Right. Now, we alluded to the Olympics briefly. What are your thoughts on the sixes that are going to be used there?
I love it. I mean, it's sort of the best of both worlds. But I would still love to see the traditional field lacrosse and box at the Olympics. I think they're both worthy. But if the argument is there's just too much to coordinate with how many players you have in field and how many you have in box compared to the sixes, and it's just a lot easier to control and coordinate everything. I enjoyed it a lot, and it really caters to the athleticism of the game, which the 5-on-5, the offense defense takes the athleticism out of the game.
Right.
So I mean, it becomes about knowledge and pick and rolls and stuff like that. So I'm always like, man, let's make it athletic again. Make it athletic, create the 2-on-1s. I want to see a game 17-16. I love defense, but it's not fun watching a 6-5 game,
Right.
Until the last 2 minutes when it's like, oh. But, man, I want to see goals. I want to see opportunities. Like, even if it's a 9-8 game, but each team had 70 shots, I'm good with that. But
Right.
to slow it down. And it's great to be able to execute like that. But it gets a little monotonous sometimes for me.
Would it be far-fetched to keep everything the same and then just change the goal from 6x6 to 4x4? Put a box net in to give the goalie a little dignity?
Yeah, that's one thing they're definitely going to have to change on that. I mean, wow. You talk about being hung out to dry, man. Wow.
Yeah, 45-41 is going to be the scores. It's
for sure.
ridiculous.
You start putting those athletes on the field and having so much room, and you don't have that. There's just too much room. The slides are too long. You're not going to be able to double. You know what I mean? You're going to get good opportunities. And these guys are banging shots 100 miles an hour from 8 yards on this guy. Like, man, I just feel bad for the goalies. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, if they manipulate the size of the net and just make it a little bit more competitive for the goalies, I think that'd be a great idea.
Awesome. Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you. You got any questions for Darris?
No, I'll do the standard with the legends of the game. Put yourself in today's game. You fare better, worse, or the same?
I think I do pretty good because I was a very good outside shooter, and they like to pack it in. And man, you give me that shot from that white restraited line, and I'm gonna bang that on the goalies. The nuts are too big, the shooter's too good, and I think that's a huge part of today's game. I watch, and it's like everyone's running to the defense. Where I'm like, man, take that 20-foot shot, man, take it. And usually if it's an outside shot and it doesn't go in, it's going to the boards. And if they're all packed in, we just pick up the loose ball and we do it again.
Get a reset.
Now, you can't get into we're taking 50 outside shots. But if you bang a couple early outside shots, then the defense has to spread out and has to come get you. So, it's a double-edged sword. But I think the shooters in today's games have really lost the art of the outside shot, man. I remember Derek Keenan and Bob Hamley banging shots from their straining line. And it was more about deception. And I think that's another thing that's getting lost with a lot of guys is the deception of the shot. Now, everybody had curveballs and change-ups and all that kind of stuff back in the day. And now you talk to kids and they're like, what's a curveball? What's a change-up? How did you do that? Well, we just went in the backyard and shot. And that's where we learned how to shoot. And then for me, I asked a lot of questions. Hey, Derek, how did you do that? JT, how did you do that? And try and develop it and make it your own shot. But a lot of kids today, they don't ask questions, which I think is a huge mistake. If you're standing next to John Tavares and you don't ask him how or what he thinks when he shoots, then you're dumb. He's the best shooter, one of the best shooters in the game. Even now, from what I hear in practice, he still rips up goalies.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
What reminds me of him the most now is probably Jeff Teed.
Jeff T is an amazing player. The thing with Jeff is you see the deception with him. And, I talk to Goa and I talk to other goalies, and they're just like, I can't get a read on him. He shoots all four corners with all release points, and it's just impossible to get a read on him. Where, I think younger guys have a tendency to go to the well. Man, I can bang this shot, so I'm going to keep banging the shot. Where Jeff T is a lot of setup. He tries to score the first shot, but it's really a setup for he's going to do something in the third or fourth that you're just going to bite on and be like, damn, I didn't see that coming. So he is a very, very smart shooter, very deceptive shooter. And the biggest thing that, a lot of people don't realize is how accurate he is. You give him a ball-sized hole, and he can hit that hole. Where, some guys shoot 105 miles an hour, and they aim for, the top of the net. Like, not a corner. They just aim for the top of the net. Where Jeff T is banging that shot, and he's doing it with a thought in mind, which is dangerous for the goalies.
Right. Now, State of the Union. But I think we're finally heading in the right direction, even though we had all this stuff before when you were playing. You know, we had the TV, we had the big arenas, we had all the, and we're back there now. We're finally there with TV. We're finally there with marketing. Is full time on the horizon, you think?
I hope so. I hope so, and I think it is if we keep going the way we're going. But I think that's the next step. You know, like I said, you know, everyone talks about how do we change the game so it's a better product. And what I've said for the last 20 years is we practice more. We get into systems, we get into double teams, traps, full court presses, and we evolve the game that way instead of saying, how can we change the game we love because we can't get the guys at practice? You know, I'd rather say, let's have 3 practices a week, and you'll see the level of the game go way up.
Right.
I think, you know what I mean? And it'll bring more opportunities for coaching. And like I said, man, we used to run a 2-on-2 trap, and that worked for a while. And then they started to get used to that. Then you need to do something else, but you don't have time to work on it. So it's really a catch-22, really, man. Like, I want to see the game like 40 minutes of hell, like Nolan Richardson at Arkansas back in the day. Pressure everywhere. And hey, man, like if you score that goal, go do it again, because I don't think you can. You know, and that's part of the other thing too. If we run a press and we have the defensemen running the ball up all night, and say they get a 2-on-1 with, you know, Priolo and Zach Belcher, they're going to score 2 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 10. But if we turn the ball over and we got Josh Byrne and Dane Smith coming in on a 2-on-1, we're going to score that 5 to 6 times out of 10. So I don't care how many 2-on-1s we give up to their defensemen, as long as we're creating 2-on-1s for our offensemen.
Right.
So, you know, it's that little game within the game.
Absolutely. Now, we talked with Sikavich when he was commissioner, and Frood now that he's commissioner. And it all seems as though we're on the cusp. We're like the NHL around 1976, 77. We get the TV deals in place, and it's just before the explosion. Do you see that happening real quickly?
Yeah. I mean, I think attendance is pretty solid in maybe more than half the arenas. You know what I mean? Pretty solid. And I don't know what the next big step is going to happen, but you know, you look at what Caitlin Clark did for the WNBA, right? We got to have that one guy that everybody gravitates towards. Like, man, I got to watch this guy. I got to see this. And the other thing is, I think, you know, by bringing in extra cross players, the announcing has gotten a lot better than what it used to be. The way Teddy Jenner explains the game, you know, and guys like him that understand what are you really looking at here, right? Everybody wants to look at the goal, but nobody wants to look at, man, did you see that pick? Wow, that's the game of lacrosse. Seeing how it happened and not the result of what happened, right?
Right.
So I think once we get guys that can really explain that, I think the game will take another jump too. And I think we're almost there in terms of who's announcing the game right now and how they're explaining the game is a lot better, that people can understand sort of what they're looking at. And when you understand something, it's a lot better to watch than like, oh, what's going on, you know?
Right. And if they have, you know, intelligent conversations between your color guy and that actually makes sense and bring the game towards the people, I agree with you. And we got more and more people like that now that actually have that the basis from playing and from being around the game.
Yeah, and that's the number one thing that like when I come off the floor, and see someone in you know after the game party or whatever, you know, it's almost like Reg Dunlop. They're coming, you got to work on the power play, whatever, man. Like, they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what they're looking at. But they all trying to give this advice and try and say this and that, and now they can actually come with a, hey man, when you run this pick and roll, how come you guys are doing it this way and not that way? I love those questions. I'll talk that all night long. You know,
right?
Like, hey, you know, East West, right? Like, that was a huge change for the league when everybody quit doing North South picks and everyone's doing East West picks now. You know, and how do we defend that? And you watch some teams spin out of it, some teams try and double it, there's just so many things, little games going within the game that it's a beautiful thing to watch, and I love the product they're putting out right now. And I don't know if there's ever been more scorers in the game than there are right now. I mean, like that Alex Simmons, wow,
Yeah.
great shooter, just unbelievable. Like that whole Albany team last year, just wow, how young they were, and to see how great of shooters they are at such a young age is very encouraging to everything that's coming up behind them.
Oh yeah, and they just got stronger too.
Yes, for sure, and it doesn't hurt to have Dougie in that.
Yeah, that never hurts either.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It never hurts.
Well, Darris, I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure. This we've been going an hour and 10. We go another 5 hours, man. I love listening to stories.
Anytime, man. I love talking lacrosse, man. You know that.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you in person soon. Now that the season's about to begin in the next month or so, and hopefully we can sit back and talk in person for a little bit.
For sure. I'm definitely around the game a lot more than I was. And, I want to give a shout out to Landon Miller for bringing me into the Iroquois, and Roger Chrysler for bringing me in, and Mike Kersey and Bruce Codd and Stu Montour for allowing me to be in the room and hear how they progress the game, which is, I love the drills they're running. I love listening to how they talk, and the game is definitely progressing with the young guys coming in. So thanks to them guys for getting me back into this game. And I'm going to be around a lot more in terms of NLL and stuff like that. I definitely want to get my foot somewhere in the door or something.
That's great news for everybody involved.
Excellent.
All right. Take care, and we will talk to you real soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
That was Darris Kilgour, Hall of Famer, former coach and GM of the Buffalo Bandits, as well as Washington, as well as with Iroquois and Haudenosaunee. What a great guy. And my God, the knowledge. I'm so glad he's back in the game full-time, because I'm telling you, this game would really suffer if, guys like him aren't part of it, because that's the growth. In order to go forward, you got to know where you came from, and you got to have guys who know about the past, the present, and how to get to the future correctly. That's how this game grows.
I agree.
All right, let's change around. We got a few little bits of news that happened this week. Lacrossing barriers, of course, they've opened up in Calgary, and remember, all inclusive for people who don't usually get the opportunity. So Calgary is starting, and as well as in Moose Jaw, in Shawn's neck of the woods, and they have already started, and that is fantastic news.
Excellent.
Now we're talking about growing, and one of the things that we got to be is inclusive, and the first woman scout is now on an NLL team, and that is Shawn Wallace. Just a little look at her career, her resume: 117 goals and 21 assists in 60 career NCAA games. 2023 player and coaching assistant at University of Albany. 2024 Women's World Box Lacrosse Championship silver medalist with Canada. Currently an assistant coach for Central Michigan University. First female scout in NLL history for the Albany Firewolves, and that's fantastic. And first of many, because there are so many that could step into that role today and be viable at it.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to a show on the other network with Spangler Sports World on November 14th, and I will have Dana Doby, Aaron Bakes, I will have Megan Keena, I'll have Michelle Boyer, Emily Hallertuck on there as well, and talking about the women's box and where it's going from here, and the growth and the growing pains and everything else. So it's going to be a fantastic thing. You don't want to miss that. That is Thursday, November the 14th at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's one of those to circle on your calendar. It's a do not miss show. While we're on the women's game, the ALL West women had its combine today. So congratulations to everybody there. And let's see how that shapes up. And I'm sure there's expansion on the horizon, because that program is growing leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. We're coming up on November, and that is Native American Heritage Month in the U.S. And of course, we will have our daily little clips to try and bridge the gap of understanding between Native and non-Native. And so look for that starting November 1st through the month of November. And again, it's our privilege to bring this to you, and all the clips that I've been able to find and put together so that you have a chance to see other tribes, other areas, and other history, and how it relates and interrelates with Native and non-Native to get a better understanding overall to try and get things moving. Well, Mike, Big Attaway weekend is only a week away now. We had all the playoffs this week, and of course, there's our little thing there. Now, remember, if you are anywhere in the area, in the St. Catharines area, Kiwanis Field, 240 St. Paul Street West, St. Catharines, hosted by Brock University. And, of course, they are in it still. The big thing different from other years, as Tom Bolesky had mentioned a couple of weeks back, was the Rookie All-Star Showcase game on Saturday night at 8 p.m. That's going to be a don't-miss event. I think that's going to be probably the cherry on the Sunday of this weekend. But to take a look at a couple of the scores there. There was one upset in this one, and let me just get to the games. Western beat Nipissing 13-6, so they are in the Big Attaway weekend. Queens slid by Carleton 6-3 to make it in there. Ottawa beat Trent 12-6. It was a convincing victory. And Ottawa is in the Big Attaway weekend, not Trent. That's huge. Guelph, well, they're 10-0 this year, right? And they walked all over Toronto 18-2. And McGill, another team that was, and they walked all over Bishops 19-5. So to take a look at next week's quarterfinals on Friday, you have Ottawa facing Western at 4 p.m. and you have Brock facing Queens at 7 p.m. The winners of those will face McGill and Guelph in the semifinals, respectively, and we'll see what happens. And remember, after the semifinal game, the second one, you have the rookie game. Sunday at 1 p.m., the championship game will be held. All these games, I believe, are streamed through CUFLA, probably through Lacrosse TV. So please double check with us. We should have information up as we get it. And also with CUFLA, please go onto the CUFLA website and get all the information there. Alrighty. Brings us into a few things that are happening over in the NLL. We had a few signings, Mike. Of note, Jeremy Thompson is off the market. He has signed a one-year agreement with Georgia. And the big one was Joey Capito, also signed with Georgia for a one-year agreement. That one changes things around a little bit for Colorado and for Georgia.
Yeah, it's a big boost to the Swarm transition game for sure.
Absolutely. Calgary placed Eli Salama on the active roster from the injury reserve. That's good. Also signed Reese Callies and John Lynch to one-year agreements. San Diego placed Jake Govett on the active roster from the injury reserve. That's also big news. Jake had a great year last year, and he's looking just to keep going. San Diego has placed Patrick Shumay, Trevor Baptiste, Cole Pickup, Peyton and Rosenka, and Cam Accioni on the physically unable to perform list at the moment. That's interesting.
Yeah,
let's see if that changes.
Especially Baptiste.
Well, yeah, I think Shumay also would be one. Cole Pickup's another one that's was a lauded signing. So let's see how that transpires over the next couple of weeks. Rochester placed Brandon Robinson on the protected player list from the active roster. Remember, that was a lauded signing also. And
Yep.
we'll see what happens. San Diego signed Kyle Brunch to a 1-year agreement. Toronto signed Marley Angus to a 1-year agreement. That's big. Marley had a great year last year. He did spend time between the ALL and the Toronto Rock, but every game he was in for the Toronto Rock, he made an impact. And I think this year he really has an opportunity to really shine. And, it's there for the taking now. I think you'll hear a lot about him. You'll hear a lot about Josh Dawick this year. And Josh got a whole lot bigger and stronger and faster. Always had that booming outside shot. So look out. I think things are going to go real well. Calgary placed Caleb Martin on the physically unable to perform list. Now, remember, he's their goalie in waiting in case Dylan Ward falters or gets injured again. So this is a big thing. He's a former Minto Cup winner. Very, very good goalie. Had a great junior, had a great ALL, had a great summer this year, both with Senior B and Senior A. So we're hoping that he gets there quickly. Also, they placed Evan Downey on a holdout list from the injury reserve list. So we'll see what happens there. Not a big week, but we still have a few players of note that still need to be picked up. Training camps open up this week. We got a couple of lists out there. And just to show you, the lists aren't really so much about who's there, but how many and how big and how many bona fide NLLers are on there, which is my thing of why we need expansion in the correct markets again. You take a look at Halifax. We have 30 guys. San Diego. Saskatchewan's got 30, 35 guys. Albany and more coming with another 30, 35 guys. These are massive lists and nowhere for these guys to go when they're only going to keep 21 or 22 guys, right? Right?
True.
As we get along further, Mike's going to put together a little spreadsheet of us for all the teams and who's coming to camps. We should have all the information this week as teams are starting to go this week and into next week. And pretty soon in the next 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing preseason games. It's time, Mike. It's time. The fever is back. It's, you figure that with all the lacrosse that we had throughout the summer and then the World and the Man Cup, that the couple of weeks that we've had off to trying to catch our breath and really trying to figure out what we just, the barrage we just had of some of the greatest lacrosse from the greatest players in the world. Even talking about the field game of NCAA and PLL and all the things that we saw there. So, my God, to have those few weeks, and it's like now, it's like, my God, I can't wait. I can't wait for to get going. I know my calendar is filled. Where are you going? I'll be in Rochester this week. I'll be in Buffalo this week. I'll be in Albany. I'll be in Mississauga with the Rock. Can't wait for all that. It's that time. I know Shawn feels the same. Mike feels the same. It's going to be something. And I think this year more than any, I talked to Rob Williams on Thursday on the other show, and he had also mentioned that the parity this year is probably going to be like none other. And the reason being is we just lost a contending team in Panther City. And this list of players of contending is now spread out throughout the league, making every team stronger.
Yeah.
So if you thought the team was here, they're here. If you thought the team was here, they're here. So this is going to be something. Any given.
Yeah, and I think it's going. I was going to say I think it's going to be interesting to see whether some of the teams that didn't fare so well with that dispersal draft or didn't make any picks, Buffalo, Albany. Okay, neither of those teams got any players from that dispersal draft.
Right.
Meanwhile, you have Philadelphia that got pretty close to a quarter of the team.
Yeah.
With the trades they made and the picks they made, and just about everyone they acquired could very well be on that team come the end of November.
Which is my point exactly. For we have so much talent. We've spent all this time and all this money on grassroots programs and building it up, and that we have this pool of players. Well, we haven't now, and we don't have places for them to go yet. So I know the league is working on things and really working on bolstering up everything now, but I think they need to look, and not just anywhere. I have said this before, that I think they need to look at places that understand the box game, so they don't need to train and teach the fan base what this game is, that they go ready-made market and get it moving. And then in the second round of this, we can start looking at other markets to maybe, put our toe in there and see, will it work here? But if you're going to go in the U.S., I'm looking at a Baltimore or St. Louis. If you're going in Canada, I'm looking at a Winnipeg. I'm looking at a Laval. I'm looking at a Quebec City. Things where they know the game. They've had the game around. They've seen it. They've experienced it. And if you want to go West Coast, maybe in and around a Seattle area, maybe on an outskirts, close enough that the base can get in there. But where the box game is still there, because there's a lot of people from BC in and around there that can still make it to that. So you take a look, and Darris had a great point there, that attendance is up almost half to 3/4 of the arenas are pretty stable. And the other ones are not bad. The biggest one was the Panther one and the Panther City one, and they're gone. So, I'd like to see Rochester continue along the way that they've been going. That would be great. I'd love to see it like it was back in 2014 or 15, but, baby steps.
Yeah.
And, not everybody's going to be a Calgary or a Buffalo, or in this case, this year, Toronto, where it's going to be a sellout every single night. But, to get these places where there's energy in the building, where players want to play there, which means that the echelon goes up everywhere. That's big.
Right.
Because once you get that, then you can start making them your hometown guys and then get them into the community. And once they're in the community can make it their own. And then they can feel a part of the team. And because lacrosse, kind of like CFL football, is such a close-knit, tied to the community, you're able to really get to know the players and be part of it. And really, you can feel the ups and the downs, right? Sure. And then these guys can do what they're supposed to do and entertain. Just like Darris said, go in and get booed in the opposing building and go and get cheered in your own building. If you're not getting booed in your opposing building, you're not doing it. You're not doing it right. You want these fans to hate you when you're coming. And you want these teams to hate that you're coming because you're that good. So it's going to be exciting. And I can't wait to the preseason to start seeing these guys get moving again and get everything rolling, because it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
In a lot of years, we always say, we're going to sell you the whole seat. You're only going to need the edge. But this year, I really think it's, you may not need it at all. You may be on your feet for 58 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good point. I was just thinking about, short list of cup favorites, and that list isn't so short when you
it's not, is it?
Some of these teams on paper.
And a lot of them, and just to show you how this can change in a year, Philadelphia wasn't in a conversation for anything. They're in a conversation for the top. Vancouver's in a conversation for the top.
Yeah.
Buffalo is going to, have a hard time keeping on top. Toronto is another one that's perennially there, and they're going to have a real tough time. They're going to have to really put a good, solid team all around together to stay up there. Saskatchewan's another one that's going to be in the conversation up top. Georgia, that was in the conversation already, and with a couple extra moves and the base that they already have, and one of the premier goalies, of course, and Brett Dobson, they just got stronger. They were already very strong, and they got stronger.
Yeah. And
more well-rounded.
I mean, had Panther City not folded, they probably would have been on the list too. So
they should have been on the list. They bounced one way or the other, and they were, really doing things last year. But their ashes being spread all over the place is going to be just absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Rochester, another one that, again, it comes down to Hartley. If he can stay healthy, they can do all kinds because they got stronger in all aspects.
Yeah, their transition and their defense definitely
Were the things that they needed to look at, and they addressed. This is the
the
thing.
Ottawa defense improved too. So
and the goaltending.
Yep.
So wow. Let alone they have guys to work on offense with Jeff T. What a way to market it in a new city when you have the best player in the game over there to market. And he's not that far away from there, so he can actually spend a lot of time in the community. So, a lot of upside everywhere. Just a reminder to everybody that we are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Thread, we're on YouTube, and we are on our new home here at Stream Punk Entertainment. And it's so great to be here. And the guys have been fantastic getting us acclimated. And like I'd mentioned last week, it affects you guys, the viewers, not at all. Everything stays the same. We are still every Sunday night at 9 p.m. We even have a little more freedom to do more if we need to. So this should be really, really great. And there's a lot of other things and a lot of wheels in motion behind the scenes. So you, the viewers, are going to get a lot more bang for your buck, which is spectacular. Now, if you're interested in sponsoring, we're interested in listening. Just putting that out there. Wouldn't be me if I wasn't trying to market. Anyways, last words, Mike.
Just looking forward to hopefully more teams will put out lists like Albany and Halifax and San Diego and Saskatchewan did there, so you can see who's actually coming to camp and who's going to be fighting for spots, because it's going to be a competition everywhere.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'd say very little is is guaranteed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Start for any player. So
it comes to what Bill Ostrauser said. Bill Ostrauser said, when they're asking, are you ready for camp? Is because, years ago we would use camp to get ready for the season. But the way things are now, with all the programs and everything like that, and all the young kids, if you don't come in to camp in peak form and ready to go like it's mid-season, you don't have a job. Yeah. Simple. Doesn't matter who you are. Yeah. There's someone there chomping to take your job. There's a lot of guys not going to be playing who should be. But for the fans, you are going to see the best of the best every night on every team. So, win-win. Yeah. As a lacrosser, though, I'd love to see everybody working. So I'd like to see more teams. Not too many. Let's get enough that we keep the product way up here. But, we got to get the minds like the Darris Kilgours back behind the benches and, get these guys into rosters. So I think the future is very, very bright. And as the explosion happens, the elevator is around 4.3 or 4 now. And once it starts picking up speed, it's going to be like one of those NASA rockets. But I want to thank everybody, as always, for their patronage. And it is our privilege, it's our pleasure and our privilege to give you everything. We have a couple more outlooks coming out this week. Mike's got one coming out this week, and we're doing Pat in Philadelphia this week.
Might be.
Right. Stay tuned. We'll let you know. But we have 2 more outlooks coming up this week of teams getting ready for the season. So we've had some great responses from y'all with the ones that we had out so far. So let's keep her going and keep the energy churning towards the last weekend in November. Only 4 weeks away, guys. And regular season is on. So it's coming fast. Have everybody have a happy Halloween, which is midweek. And that should be a fun time. But remember, Gataway Cup is next weekend. Over if you're anywhere near St. Catharines, please go onto the Brock site or on the CUFLA site and get the information and get over there, support. These guys are great, and you're going to see some fantastic field lacrosse to end the Canadian season. So until next week, for Muffler Mike over in Connecticut, Shawn, get better soon. We need you on the show.
Yep.
I'm Gary Groob in Toronto, wishing you all the best of weeks. And remember, keep your stick in your hand. And until next week, have a great week.